Welcome to the May 10th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Victor Planning Board. We'll start the meeting with the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Got some announcements. Emergency exits are to your right and left. It says emergency exit on it, but it might be smoky in the room when you have to use it, so just pointing them out for you. Restrooms are just outside the door and to the left. Please be sure to sign the attendance sheet at the back of the meeting room, even if you are a developer or are presenting an application. Number 4, there are business cards at the back table next to the sign-in sheet to take with you if you wish, with the email address and phone number for the planning department. Also on the back table is a copy of the resolutions that will be read tonight, along with the agenda. Please turn off your cell phones if you have them on, or put them on silent. If you must take a call, please take it out in the hall. And that goes for conversations. If you must speak to someone during the meeting, please take that out in the hall as well. No meeting minutes? No. Okay. Next time. The only correspondence received was Timothy McGill with regard to the Haskell shed. And with regard to boards and committees updates, I'm looking at something that's printed right here on the sheet. Kim Kinsella, Planning Board update.
She is not here.
So you will do it.
I will do it for her. Your next meeting is May 24th. You do have the public hearing Delta Sonic Car Wash, which was removed tonight, will be back on. It's 74063 State Route 96 for the demolition of the existing buildings and construct a 13,914 interior detail building. Your next public hearing will be auction direct pavement expansion at 6520 State Route 96. Applicant is requesting approval to extend the front lot pavement by 18 feet by 200 feet long to display inventory cars. Crown Castle at 90 Baker Road did come off of tonight's agenda. We'll be back on for May 24th at 90 Baker Road. And a final subdivision of Fairways Phase 3, subdivision lots 307 to 312. They're requesting approval for re-subdivisions of the lots into 25 individual townhomes, and then any carryovers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The legal notice for the public hearings appeared in the Daily Messenger, along with under-review signs being posted on the subject parcels. Postcards were mailed to property owners within a minimum of 500 feet from the location for the initial public hearing date of each application, and for applications carried over, please refer to the Planning and Building Office.
I don't know if you've seen
Oh, I'm sorry, Ed, you have anything from Town Board? Walked right by when I came in, so I should know you were there. I've done that to Kim many times.
That's okay. I figured you'd get around to me eventually. Ed Kahovic, representing Town Board. Again, I'm liaison for this period of time. The only thing really that would concern you guys is there's been a lot of questions again about signs and right-of-way. And you may know, obviously, the library vote is a big hot topic in town right now. And you have both yes and no vote signs going up in right-of-ways. We have the same issue that comes up at election time with, people that are looking to get elected, self-guilty as it, when that time came, we put signs up. So I guess for Kim, if it goes back to her, let her know that it's a concern in general. We've had this issue. Is it something that we're going to chase with, the codes guys? Or if it's not, do we need to change the code? So that may become in some point in the future, because it's still, a hot topic about when people put signs up. And it could be anything. Joe's painting, when he's doing a project for somebody, he puts a sign up, or Comfort Windows, or whatever it might be. But a lot of times we know that we get complaints that the signs don't come down after a certain period of time, and either they get blown away or they end up, trash and rubbish and whatever. So that's the only really item for you guys to start thinking about, maybe a little bit, because it has become, again, a hot topic because of the current issue, so to speak, and it's been on both sides. I've personally heard it from people that are in support of the library and people that are not in support of the library. What are we doing with signs? Why are they in the right of way? So I'm like, okay, relax. But anyway, let's run that by Kim, if you would. And then the only other thing is, this year the Memorial Day Parade is back, so that's coming, obviously, Memorial Day, so pretty happy about that. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. With regard to the public hearings, speakers are requested to limit comments to 3 minutes and will be asked to conclude comments at 5 minutes. That means if you're in the middle of a sentence, we'll let you finish, but you're going to have to cut it off after that. First one is Delta Sonic Car Wash, which had been removed until the May 24th meeting. Next is Dish Wireless at Baker Road. The public hearing is open. It's at 90 Baker Road. The owner is Pinnacle Towers. It's zoned residential 2. It's number 02SU 2022. Owner Pinnacle Towers. Next, tax map number 1.02-1-24.000. Applicant is requesting approval to install antennas, ancillary tower, and ground equipment at an existing wireless facility with no charge to height or ground space. There have been questions raised about that, and somebody's here tonight to discuss it with us.
My name is Richard Zajac, representing Crown Castle on behalf of Dish Wireless. I'll ask the board, I hope you all have seen a copy of the report that was submitted late last week.
Yeah, it's in our Dropbox.
I think that basically summarizes all the comments displaying that the RF levels are well within FCC allowable limits. I don't know if anybody has any questions relating to that report.
Anybody from the board have any questions or comments about this issue?
Wes, did Labella look at this and have any comments?
We didn't get a chance to run this by our electrical engineers, but we can do that. But the one question I do have is in section 4.0, and wondering, it's on page 5. It's with regard to mitigation and site control options. Could you maybe summarize or describe for the planning board, are there mitigating issues, are there issues here at this site that need to be mitigated?
No,
Okay.
no, there are no issues. That's kind of just talking about, it goes through options that are available, if there were mitigation of, things required. At this particular site, there are not.
Okay.
The conclusion of this report, just for the benefit of everybody here, was that there should be no effect on anybody with regard to these emissions. A lot of it has to do with affecting workers who might be close by, and even at that, it's not a concern. This would be in the file if anybody wants to read it at the Building and Zoning Office right across the hall.
We should also note that this document that the applicant has submitted has been stamped and signed by a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York.
Thank you, Wes.
Scott also distributed a link to a website with a report. I had a chance to read through that as well, and it talks a lot about, levels of, the different frequencies of all these different communications elements on these different towers around Baker Road.
Mm-hmm.
But it also talks about where's the maximum effect of the energy where it gets directed, and these antennas are so high. They say they're kind of directional. They don't focus the same amount of energy in a strict, 360 degree or spherical, directional, right? So I have a hard time seeing where there's a lot of energy being focused to the ground on the residents right in the immediate area, in addition to what, they presented in the report, so.
What it looks like to me, too.
Is the gist of the report pretty much page 1, statement of compliance, where if you have these numbers that you say you have and you're under the thresholds that are identified by the FCC, then you're in compliance, and if you're in compliance, we can somehow deduce that there would not be some sort of health issue associated with that? Is that pretty much what we're talking about here?
Correct, yeah, and I think page one there, kind of about 3/4 of the way down, 39, the antennas are approximately 39% of the FCC's general public limit.
0.39%.
0.39%, excuse me. And it goes on to talk about the element, with the workers on site, the different readings for that. So right there, kind of, that's the crux of it. To answer, long-winded answer to your question, yes, page one kind of summarizes it.
There was another resource that I came across after our last meeting on the internet, published by the American Cancer Society, with respect to 5G and microwaves from cell phones, and the gist of that publication pretty much is that they don't have enough data to say one way or the other. So with that information in hand and with what you've presented, I don't have any reason to say that this is problematic, but I think this is something that we kind of needed to do in order to address the issue that was presented to us by one of our residents.
Sure.
But I don't have any basis to say no to you.
And it should be noted, we're very restricted on what we can do with regard to cell towers due to federal regulations. We can only try to make comment as we have to make sure things don't go bad. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this issue? Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Joe makes the motion, Scott is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got a resolution here. It's a resolution for Dish Wireless at Baker Road, at 90 Baker Road. Today's date, May 10, 2022. The application number is 02SU 2022. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 11. Now therefore be it resolved that the application of Crown Castle USA, INC, agent of Dish Wireless LLC, site plan entitled Dish Wireless at Baker Road, drawn by Jacobs Telecommunications Incorporated, received by the planning board February 16, 2022, and last revised March 18, 2022. Planning board special use application number 02SU 2022 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Number one, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25, 1996. Ongoing conditions, there are two, that the site plan comply with the town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including section 4. And two, that a building permit be obtained before construction begins. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter.
Move for approval.
Who moves? In a second?
I'll second.
Nope, Scott's got it.
Sorry.
Scott?
That's all right.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you, everybody, appreciate it.
we'll be getting a letter. Next is Crown Castle, EBA Verizon, which is removed until the May 24th meeting. Number 4 is Haskell Shed, 7940 Oak Brook Circle in Pittsford, zoned LDD, Limited Development District, 06 SP 2022. The owner is Daniel Haskell, tax map number 5.02-3-5.000. And if I didn't say the address, I'll say it now. It's 7940 Oak Brook Circle, Pittsford. I did say it.
Yes.
Applicant is requesting approval to construct a metallic 8-foot by 10-foot shed. The shed is pre-existing. There are staff comments. Your name?
Daniel Haskell.
Tell us what's going on.
I am just seeking permission to have the shed placed. I initially, as you read, the address reads as Pittsford, New York, so I was under the assumption that I had to go by Pittsford regulations, but now I'm following through with Victor regulations. So I think that has not been updated. It should show 15 feet now, because I spoke with the code enforcement officer who came to inspect it, and it was 4 inches short. So, yeah, that's going to be remediated this weekend. Beyond that, nothing else.
So it's been moved?
It has been moved. I believed that it was 15 feet, but it's apparently 4 inches short. So I was told that I can get provisional approval so long as it's done by Tuesday, but he's going to come to inspect it next.
Anybody from the board have any questions?
Are you here because of the size of the shed? Is that what?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah,
LDD, I'm sorry.
limited development, just, yeah, family of 3, young family, we need the storage space.
In that part of town, many people have a Bitsford address, but it's in the town of Victor.
Right.
It is, right, correct, that's what I learned, which is why we're here now. Just want to comply with everything.
We have some Pittsford residents who go to our school.
Well, I'm pro school choice, so.
Anybody else from the board? You have anything else, Scott?
Just a quick question. One of the photos that you supplied in your application shows a lot of water in that area where the shed is.
Correct.
Probably, is that a seasonal thing that you get?
It's a seasonal thing. I have my landscaper doing some assessment to have some remediation done this, because we're expecting a dry summer apparently, so he said it's best to get it done. So what you don't see is that there is, I'm sorry, I don't know the terminology, but there was something done for the water to escape. That's just out of view of this picture. But terrain changes, so now they need to grade it down a little bit more so everything goes back to the drainage.
So-
It's just, that forest goes straight down to,
The season that you shot this picture in looks like it probably ground was still frozen and you had to melt and the water accumulated, not so much that a creek overflowed or things like that. Is that,
there's no creek
accurate?
nearby, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is just from snow and rain, yeah.
all right. I just want to make sure you're not in a problematic area that
No,
floods.
I also, I apologize if it's not mentioned here, but it is pulled forward, I don't know, 6 inches additionally.
Mhm. Okay, I
Yes.
don't have a problem with the request, and that's all I had.
Agreed, no questions.
Anybody from the public wish to speak on this? Hearing nothing, I'll ask Wes, you have any comments?
No comment.
Entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Al makes it, motion, and who seconds?
I'll second it.
Joe seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed.
Thank you for your time.
We're going to read a resolution now for you.
Oh, sure.
It's for the Haskell Shed Site Plan, 7940 Oak Brook Circle, Pittsford. Today's date, 5/10/22, application number 06SP 2022. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 6. Whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board reviewed the unlisted action on May 10, 2022, and identified no significant impacts, now therefore be it resolved that the project Haskell Shed Site Plan will not have a significant impact on the environment, and that a negative declaration be prepared, and be it further resolved that the application of Daniel Haskell Site Plan entitled Quick Fill Shed, is that correct?
It's a brand from Home Depot that I bought it from, yeah, it's just prefab.
Quick Fill Shed drawn by R.W. Larson Associates dated 2014, received by the Planning Board June 15, 2021. Planning Board application number 19 SP 2021 be approved for the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Number 1, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25, 1996. Number 2, that comments from Code Enforcement Officer dated June 25, 2021 be addressed. Ongoing conditions, there are 2. 1, that the site plan comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including Section 4. 2, that a building permit be obtained for the shed prior to installation, although it's already there. So that you're going to move it that short distance to get it.
Yes, yeah, I'm in discussion with the planning.
And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. We have a motion on this?
So moved.
Joe moves, second?
Second.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening.
Next is, I'm messing this up, I know, but the Tatuska addition modification is 08 SP 2022. It's at 1135 Willis Hill Road, zoned residential 2. The owner is Andre Dovstuka. Tax map number 27.01-1-73.000. Applicant is requesting approval to modify an approved addition by reducing the height and depth of the structure. You were, Andre?
Yeah. So my name is Andre Tovstucha, 1135 Willis Hill Road. Some of you may remember last year, you guys approved the addition to the three-car garage addition next to the historic building at 1135 Willis Hill Road. At the end of the hearing, when we kind of settled down and looked at it and took some additional comments from Barbette and some of you in the board, even so you approved it, somewhat deep inside, we weren't still satisfied, and I was afraid that if we went ahead with the project and built it, spend a lot of money and then not be happy with it. So we found alternative design. It's a reduction in size by square footage by 33% according to the architect, and a reduction in height by about 3 feet. And it aesthetically, I think, will fit better with the existing home. It still serves its purpose as far as what we needed with the three-car garage, but it's somewhat smaller and what we thought would be a better fit long-term. So we're just requesting approval for changes in the basically second floor roof modification.
Well, we spent quite a bit of time on this last time, and it was approved, but we're here again, so. Al, anything?
No, I think, again, that was one of our reservations, was the size and scale of the addition relative to the original house, and the fact that it's smaller, I think, only improves the overall situation, so I'm fine with what's being proposed.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree with Al. I like the scale of it. I think I was one of the ones that voiced about the size of it, along with, I think, Babette. And so I think you'll be much happier with the overall look of it in the long run, personally, but I have no problem with this change.
Scott?
Same comments.
Babette?
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Mrs. Tusty. The decrease in the square footage, the reduction of the height of the roof line makes it so much better to complement the cobblestone house. You have my comments. The only two things are the board and batten. They wanted to look like a carriage house, and most carriage houses did use board and batten, which is vertical. They could also go with clapboards that are horizontal that would match the addition to the cobblestone house. Two other comments were to painting. We would hope that it would be muted and it would go along with the cobblestone colors and the coin. And also that leaving as many trees as possible on Willis Hill so that the addition doesn't so that it blends into the environment. And also, Ann Aldridge is here from the Historic Advisory Committee, and she just has a short comment as well.
Ann?
Good evening. We discussed this at our last meeting, and we were pleased to see the change in design because it's less obtrusive. It fits better with the house. The roof line's lower than the main part. We like the change of the windows, too. Those dormer windows look more period than the whatever it was before. So we talked about it, and we were very pleased and support this change.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comment, question, anything else? Wes, anything?
Comments.
I guess we can close the public hearing on this. Have a motion?
I'll move it.
Scott moves to close. Second?
Second.
Joe second. Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed. And I have a resolution. for the addition modification at 1135 Willis Hill Road. Today's date, 5/10/22, application number 08SP 2022. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 7. Whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board reviewed the unlisted action on May 10, 2022, and identified no significant impacts. Now therefore be it resolved that the project Substuka addition modification will not have a significant impact on the environment, and a negative declaration be prepared. And be it further resolved that the application of Andre Substuka, site plan entitled 1135 Willis Hill Road, architectural renderings drawn by Identity Design, INC, dated April 4, 2022, received by the Planning Board April 6, 2022. Board application number 08 SP 2022 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Number 1, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25, 1996. Ongoing conditions, and there are 3. 1, that the site plan comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including Section 4. 2, the building design plan shall be consistent with the architectural details as shown on the elevations entitled the Stuka addition modification and details as shown on the April 4, 2022. There'll be another word in there. Anybody have an idea what that word should be? Yeah. No? Okay, we'll look into it, and I'm sure should be another word in there. Probably like the plans or the drawings drawn by Identity Design received by the Planning Board April 6, 2022. Number 3, that a building permit be obtained from the Building Department before construction begins, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the Planning Board's approval letter. You have a motion?
So moved.
Joe moves. A second?
I'll second.
Too late, Al.
I waited.
You hesitated.
Got seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This is a final subdivision for Ballentown Meadows. It's 7241 Ballentown Road, 02FS 2022. Owner is Comark Holdings, zoned residential 2. Tax map number 1.02-1-21.1000. 1.000. Applicant is requesting approval for a clustered subdivision of a 28.6 acre parcel into 8 individual lots ranging in size from 1.58 acres to 5.87 acres. The property is currently divided by Ballentown Road with an existing house on the south side of Ballentown Road and an existing barn structure on the north side of Ballentown Road. This will be the 3rd step in a 3-step process for a major subdivision. The preliminary plan was acknowledged complete March 22, 2022.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Marks, here with Marks Engineering. It's my pleasure to introduce to you guys the final subdivision for this. We've been working on this for a few months now. I think you're all very familiar with it. We've prepared the plans for the preliminary subdivision that was approved previously. We've received a letter from the town engineer. We acknowledge the letter, and we plan to address all the concerns. We have no objections to anything that was prepared, and I think it is very minimal and minor impacts and all technical in nature. Again, I don't think I need to go into much detail about the subdivision because you guys are all very familiar with it. And we're requesting final approval for the subdivision to move forward with this project.
Okay, anybody from the board have any comment? No, anything?
So just one question, reading through the materials, was where we landed with the potential dedication of some portion of it to the parks trail
Yeah, my understanding is that the approval for that has been withdrawn. Not going forward, that's correct?
That's correct.
David Cokewood from Comark Holdings. After several back and forths with the representatives from Parks Department and Trails, the continual ask was far-reaching compared to what was offered multiple times. Very much felt that the offer that we made was reasonable and was, for the most part, flatly ignored. And the ask was about 3 times farther into the property than we were willing to offer. We were so far apart on starting points that there was, in my opinion, no meeting in the middle as that was able. The Parks Department has acknowledged that in their letter and has vowed to take a different tact and approach in future projects. These projects the parcels that they were looking to have access to will be coming in front of this board again when they come in for building permits. So there will be another shot at this, but not under this application.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Al?
Nope, I'm all set.
I'm all set.
Ben?
I just had a question on the site distance clearing. Is that something that takes place now, later? When does that happen?
Our ask is prior to issuance of a building permit for those lots.
All right. Wes, are they okay on their drainage? Are you guys all set with that?
Yeah, we've spent some considerable time, past 24 hours or so, looking at the subdivision plans and then kind of looking at the town code, the town's design and construction standards. And we are to a point where we're satisfied in general with the concept of where this project is heading, right? We don't have a stormwater management facility per se that's proposed here, and it's not required, right? So we're just taking a little bit of time to come to consensus with the translation of the perk test information, which gives us a sense of what the soils are doing for infiltration. And we know that there's an infiltration pipe, if you will, 12-inch pipe coming from 3 or 4 of the homes on the north side of the road, embedded in 24 inches of stone. That's going to help infiltrate roof drainage. So I think in general, we are satisfied with stormwater, but we just want to, there's nothing that's going to result in a significant design change. I think at most, we might see maybe a rain garden, very similar to what transpired with the Anderson Section 1 estate lots, if you recall those. So,
Do they need to do other soil tests particular to the infiltration, or, I mean?
DEC doesn't require them to do any testing, so it's really more of a town thing and us becoming comfortable with what they've provided, and I don't see an issue. I've talked with Steve Metzger and Mary Stebline about where we're at with these, and we're comfortable with how things look. Yep.
Okay.
Comment or questions? Public? Did we close the public hearing?
No public hearing.
It's not a public hearing.
Can still do it.
Last time I was here about this project, our concern at the Historic Advisory Committee was the barn. And I asked the question if there could be something in the deed or the, whatever you call it, where there would be a codicil or something that whoever's gets that parcel with the barn on it, that they would need to take care of it as a historic structure. And I believe the comment was you'd have to check with the lawyer, and I'm wondering if that was done.
I believe Kim was reaching out to the lawyer. I don't think we can put anything in the resolution. I think it was gearing towards when they close. But I can double check with Kim. I think she did reach out.
We want to protect that barn, so we were trying to get something in writing where the owner would be aware that they need to maintain that barn. So, are we going to do something about that here? it doesn't sound like we've addressed that. You said it's not in the resolution.
To my knowledge, we haven't received anything from the town attorney in regard to the structure and what, if anything, the property owner would need to do to inform future owners of maintenance of that barn.
I don't know which parcel that goes with. We'll end up owning it.
Yeah.
Could you,
It's a post and beam. It's not a new construction.
The building is not designated a historic structure under the registry in the town.
So all right, so that was a question that maybe I was going to ask Babette, right? There's a historic resources inventory here in the town of Victor. Is this structure in that inventory?
It's attached to the Freund house. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Okay, so it is part of the Freund property.
Okay.
It originally was with the Freund house, which is listed as of medium value
Where's that house?
across the street.
So the house is designated as a medium value.
Right. I guess our only concern is, and I'm thinking positively, that somebody buys this property, has this barn on the property, they're building a new house. I would expect that they would keep the barn up. I don't want to see us come back here and say, oh, we got this new house here and the barn, we're gonna demolish it now. I mean, we need to make a decision.
So but currently, the barn itself is not on the historic
Correct, because we
resource
haven't
inventory.
done barns. But barns historically are historic because we don't have barns anymore.
Understood. Okay.
It's post and beam, so it's old construction.
Understood. Yep.
I'm not gonna, this is not gonna be a Tiananmen Square, but it is going to be, the barn is in pretty good shape, so just want to know what's gonna happen with it.
So I guess my question would be, if this development weren't even up for discussion, right? There's nothing that currently obligates the current owner from maintaining it, demising it, right? So the development itself doesn't change the current conditions.
And
Not to dispute that, I think we'd all love to see the barn stay, but
You're absolutely correct.
yeah, this barn is in good condition. The roof is in, it's got a fairly new roof, I would say in the last 10 to 15 years. The house, for clarity, the house burned down in 1955 and was rebuilt. So the house is not a historic structure.
Yes, it is.
So the barn is of the age, but is not deemed a historic structure.
that house, the Sears Roebuck house, as was described?
Yes. Francis has extensively discussed that. So, our intention is to keep the barn, and we hope that the buyer that comes in maintains that barn. We have we're not putting deed restrictions on there to force that onto any buyer. We don't want to see it fall into disrepair, but this ultimately will be a home lot that will go with the barn.
The barn encroaches into the right-of-way 8.5 feet. So the town already put the writing on the wall for the barn to get rid of it, but we've gone through great lengths to save it, including getting a variance to keep it on that property for this approval process. So it's an asset to us, and I think we've made that clear.
What variance did you get for the,
A barn in front of a principal structure.
okay, but this is a pre-existing condition.
Right, we had to get a variance for the principal structure to be located behind the barn on the property.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, the town paving the right-of-way with the barn 8.5 feet encroaching into it was already saying the barn should go. However, we are proposing that we preserve it and maintain it, and we've also put a variance to allow for it to stay.
The ZBA?
Yes. Actually, the ZBA was asking us, why don't you remove it? And they actually wanted to put a sunset clause on the barn that if it was beyond repair, that it was come down. The ZBA, that's what it was. And not be rebuilt.
So is there another way to, I think, in the cobwebs of my memory, early on in my career on this board, we saved a barn somewhere else by having a company come in and salvage all that and rebuild it somewhere else. Where was that? Yeah. That's going to remember better than me, obviously.
And the O'Keefe barn. Oh, no.
So that's not on the record at the moment. Can you come up, Babette, and to explain that?
I think probably this is getting into more depth than we really want to. It was the Hawkins barn across from Ravenwood. They wanted to demolish it.
Okay.
And Harley came in and said, you know, we started as a barn. We'd like to have our new building, which was environmental, I can't remember, something, school. So they came and they dismantled the whole barn, and they used as much of it as they could up at Harley.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I still think if somebody buys this property, they are going to want to keep the barn.
It's entirely possible.
So, as I said before, I feel very positive about this, because I just do.
Yeah, I don't know, Ernie, how can we do that? I would expect that if somebody wants to demolish a historic structure, they have to get approval by the board, correct?
You can get a deed restriction if seller and buyer agree to it.
Yeah. But at the same time, if they sell it without this deed restriction, it's still,
In limbo.
okay. I wouldn't know how to include it in this particular subdivision
No, I don't either.
application.
Well, but again, don't we have a town code if there's a structure that's older than 1950, that demolition has to be approved by the town board or the planning board? So there's some protection.
Yeah,
That's true. They would have to come to us.
remove it. And the building department, I would assume.
And Babette would take a look at it again, I assume.
So I don't know how that would affect this particular application, because they're trying to sell this parcel, Lot 2, with this barn on it. So someone is going to have to understand that there's a barn on it, and how do we tell them that it's, or how do we make sure they just don't burn it down, for instance, or rip it down? I mean, it'd be crazy.
Somebody from the town or Babette or somebody has to go out there and tell the owner, the new owner.
Hold on. This is the owner of the property. It's
Right.
his
Now he is,
respons-
but he's not going to be.
No, but it's his responsibility to tell that person who buys that lot that this is a barn that you cannot demolish without going to the town planning board and the historian. Now, if he doesn't, I'm a teacher, shame on you. So you got to either trust him and the people who are buying it, or you're going to put something into your, it's very unusual. This doesn't ever happen. So.
Is there a possibility that this can be through the inventory that was previously done? Would this barn be eligible to be included on the town's historic resource inventory? How does that process happen to get this barn on that inventory?
The process would be, again, that we'd go through the Landmark Society, and honestly, there's really no reason to do that, spending all that money, because they're going to put all the barns that are in good condition on an historic resources inventory.
Okay.
Oh, can we put that on the record, saying that?
How and when do they do that?
How and when? We can do it any time, Ernie.
So
Just-
I would say you'd do it sooner rather than later.
What I can offer, at least with regard to the town code, section 21150 83.1 demolition permit review. Prior to issuing a permit for the demolition of any structure, whether in whole or in part, the code enforcement officer shall determine whether the structure is 50 years old or older, or is listed on the town historic resources inventory. Nothing in this subsection shall limit the demolition of unsafe structures in accordance with section 83.9. If the structure is both, well, it's not less than 50 years old, but if the structure is 50 years old or older, or is listed on the town's historic resources inventory, the code enforcement officer shall refer the application for said demolition to the planning board for its review and recommendation. So I believe that was shared earlier in this meeting. For such applications referred to the planning board shall hold a public hearing, shall hold a public information meeting, and its review shall include the impact of the demolition on the town's historic resources, including but not limiting to the following considerations. If the structure is 50 years old or older, or is listed on the historic resources inventory as having high significance, the following considerations. Recommendations, if any, from the Town Historic Advisory Committee and/or town historian, whether the structure can be preserved or incorporated into the future design or plan for the parcel, whether there are alternative sites for the applicant's project, whether the structure can be relocated without undue hardship to the applicant, whether the parcel or structure can be sold to a buyer willing to rehabilitate the structure, whether architectural features of the structure can be documented and/or salvaged prior to demolition, and whether other alternatives for preserving all or a portion of the structure exist without imposing an undue hardship upon the applicant. If the structure is listed on the historic resources inventory as having a medium significance to the planning board's review shall include the recommendations, if any, from the Town Historic Advisory Committee. And if the structure is listed on the historic resources inventory as having a low significance, the planning board's review shall include the recommendations, if any, from the town historian. And finally, after reviewing the application for demolition and hearing all comments submitted in writing and/or at the public information meeting, the planning board shall issue non-binding recommendations to the applicant and shall authorize the code enforcement officer to issue the permit.
So can we can we just request that a note be put on these plans saying that this frame barn may be... Yeah. Sorry, not speaking up well enough. So if we put a note in here saying that a note shall be added to the plans prior to approval, that identifying the frame barn as potentially historic, and demolition of said barn will be subject to review by the town planning and zoning departments. Would that be an adequate enough notice identification that when somebody goes to buy Lot 2, they would see that note and understand that their application to demolish it may be subject to review by the historic committee or...
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
Subject to review.
Trying to be a little bit vague about it, but I mean, if you want to go direct, we could do that too. But if it's a will be subject to, there's no harm, and it's probably transparent to make sure that that's known as an affected element.
How does that information get to them?
Well,
They're not going to be coming down here and...
See, that's the problem. You lost a barn on the corner of Victor Egypt Road and Aldrich Road. They just tore it down. They didn't ask, they just did it, and it was gone.
But was it identified somewhere that it...
Well, don't you have to have permission to demolish a building? I mean, we're back to that, and they didn't. So that's why we're kind of trying to be proactive with this barn, to try to protect it.
I'm more than willing as owner of the property to convey the message to the buyer of this property that this barn is of the age that it is, it's in the condition that it is, and if the new buyer wishes to demolish this, they need to bring an application prior to that.
Or demolition to the town prior to doing that.
And I'm happy to have that relayed in an attorney letter. That's not a problem. My only concern is I feel like we're debating this again when the comment period is closed and we're starting back over. And that's, after going through this for 6 months. I understand the concerns, but, I feel like we've already gone through this.
How are you going to market the houses?
I'm sorry?
How are you going to market the houses?
Through Realtor, and as a normal MLS listing, the barn is listed as a part of that and as a selling feature. It's not something that we're trying to avoid. It's actually a selling feature of the property.
I don't think anybody's debating that. I'm certainly not,
So this
casting
is-
any aspersions on how you promote it. I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Absolutely, and adding a note to the plan, it does that as well. That's fine.
I mean, it should be part of that parcel, that note goes along with it. I mean, having it as a general subdivision note is one thing, but I don't know how that then
And
would
that's
follow
why I would have
forward.
my attorney
Yeah.
list that in the closing letter for recommendations on
You
that.
have a Realtor right now?
I have a realtor and an attorney that I can. put
Who's that?
My attorney?
Yeah.
Russ Kenyon. Russ Kenyon from Kenyon and Kenyon in Canandaigua.
Oh, I don't know them.
They just joined with Boylan Code in the last 2 months.
Oh,
What?
Boylan Code?
merged with
Oh, Boylan
Boylan.
Code. All
Yeah.
right, I got you.
So
Our office used to be in the same.
I would
building.
be certainly amenable to that, anyone who buys the parcel gets that as a notice prior to sale.
And what is the means by which we're proposing that the notice be given? Is it a note on the plans, or is it a note,
Should be
some sort of communication between the
a note on,
attorney and the buyer?
a note on the plans that the buyer gets. If they're just on some filed plans, it's
Right.
unlikely the buyer's going to get it.
Right. Yeah, we could put a note on the plans, but it's unlikely that anybody would see it.
Yeah.
It's buying the property
Correct.
anyway. Based on
As
the-
a 30-year resident of this town, my name's on this as much as, my reputation. So I assure you that will be conveyed to the new buyer.
So, like, prior to the certificate of occupancy, a copy of a letter will be, supplied to the town of Victor indicating that the buyer-to-be was notified of the barn
I
situation.
would say it would be prior to him receiving a building permit to build that house.
Okay.
They have to know that when they're going to start building a house, that they also will own the property and the barn that's on it. And that barn would be subject to review if they wanted to do anything other than restore it.
So then it'll be communication via a letter sent by the seller's attorney to the buyer and copying in
Yeah,
the Victor planner. We would have that on file, so we did our due diligence with respect to this issue. And I think that's the greatest element of control we can possibly
yeah,
assert here.
okay.
I have one further question. That sounds like a good plan, but if that owner sells, does that note and that information about the barn go to the next owner? Well, I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, that might be one of the reasons why we add a note to the Mylar, the plans that get signed and filed at the county. I mean, I understand that buyers sometimes don't look at those plans, but
Buyer's lawyer should.
exactly.
Right, but if you're going to send a letter, that's great, but then if they sell, does that letter go with them?
I would
That's just,
say that is a ball in your guys' court to work with that new buyer and work for historic designation or whatever your process is.
I think you're absolutely right. And since I get lists of all the new owners, and I do send them the letters, welcome to the town, and some of the code that, for additions, et cetera, that's a perfect opportunity. Do you agree?
Yay.
Okay,
He's been very agreeable about this right along.
sounds like a very amenable arrangement.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So we would put a note then, say, in addition to the,
A condition of the,
put it on the plat, I presume,
yeah.
correct?
Wes is wordsmithing it as we speak.
Wes always wordsmiths.
Nobody's gonna look at the other sheets, so at least
Somebody else do
the
it besides me.
new owners won't be looking at the grading plan, I don't think. But they may look at the plat, maybe.
Well, they have to be provided with some kind of a map during the closing process.
Yes.
That's what we're looking at, to have it be on that.
I assure you, I will
Okay.
make it clear.
I think there's just so much we can do. And
Yeah.
it sounds reasonable.
Can you send us a copy?
Absolutely.
Good.
Are you reading the newspaper, Wes?
I was checking out the lot number. Lot 2.
Good to know which lot it is.
Yep. Sorry, Wes.
We have a bird in our garage. Apropos of nothing, but when I went in to get in the car to come down here, I saw the bird fly out. Used to have cats. Don't have a cat anymore. No, I don't think my wife would go for that.
I got a barn, there might be.
You got one down and when you know it. To my place, got mine all pregnant.
That is a great way to finish out this process. We've gone back and forth.
Welcome amongst yourselves.
There is one that has one down there, black and white one.
So did I hear right that that white house across the street, that was an old Sears house?
Sears building, that's Sears house.
I mean, it's like the Sears neighborhood somewhere in Detroit area. There's a whole,
Sears kit.
yeah, right.
You can get it out of the Sears and Roebuck kit.
Mhm.
You could just bought anything years ago in 1910 out of the Sears and Roebuck kit.
Yeah,
I have the original plans.
that's awesome. I mean,
John kept them.
1956.
you go in the catalog and you look up, and there's like $7,000 house, and you can order it, and they'll bring it all in pallets and stuff. It's amazing.
Sorry, Wes, do you need some quiet?
I did, but I think I'm set for the most part.
All right.
Did you want me to read these conditions now, or do you want to go through the resolution and then me insert,
Yeah. let's do
narrate
that.
them?
I think that'd be best.
What would be best?
Ernie's reading, and then you'll get to chime in.
Well,
All right.
You get to be the closer.
Add the conditions.
All right.
Actually, before you start, the maintenance bond and surety.
You might want to come up to the microphone.
I'm sorry, the maintenance and surety, I'm not sure that it actually is applicable. The condition 2 on the ongoing standards and conditions that must be adhered to. Maintenance bonds shall be provided by the developer to the town for all improvements offered to the town for dedication. There's no improvements offered to the town for dedication of this project.
Yeah, that's fine. We can cross that one out.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Wes, you all set?
Yep.
Okay. There's a resolution for Ballentown Meadows final subdivision dated to 5/10/22, 7241 Ballentown Road, application number 02FS 2022. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 11. And you've already read this, right? Okay. Now therefore be it resolved, consistent with the preliminary subdivision approval, the planning board hereby issues a waiver to section 2.9.1.5 of the town's design and construction standards to allow a total of 4 lots to be served by a common driveway, where the town's design and construction standards would otherwise require no more than 3 lots to be served by a common driveway. And be it further resolved that the final subdivision application of Comark Holdings LLC, major subdivision entitled Ballentown Meadows, Cluster 8-Lot Residential Subdivision, drawn by Marks Engineering, sheets G001, Plat EX100, C100, C200, C500, C501, dated April 5, 2022, received by the planning board on or about April 7, 2022, planning board application number 02FS 2022, be approved with the following conditions. Conditions that must be met prior to the chairman signing the final subdivision plan. 1, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25, 1996. 2, that before the planning board chairman signs the approved film originals, the developer must submit electronic subdivision map files to the towns pursuant to section 1.3.3 of the Town of Victor Design and Construction Standards. Copies of electronic files shall be forwarded to the town engineer to confirm that the data on the electronic files is the same as the approved subdivision plans. 3, that section 4, standard approval conditions for all subdivisions, major and minor, of the design and construction standards be met, standards. 4, that the comments in correspondence dated May 9, 2022 from Labella Associates be addressed, and that any residual stormwater comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the town engineer and the town stormwater program manager. 5, that all conservation easement markers be shown on final subdivision plans. 6, that a reciprocal easement and common driveway maintenance agreement be submitted in accordance with sections 184-8, driveway definition, close paren, 211-12, driveway definition, close paren, and 21136 of the Victor Town Code.
I'm going to add a condition here, right, before the chairman signs the final subdivision plan.
Go ahead.
And it's going to read something to the following effect, that the subdivision plat include a note indicating the potential historic significance of the barn located on Lot 2, and that the Victor Town Code requires a local review prior to potential demolition. Or relocation, we can do that.
Did we want to add a waiver on the driveway separation?
I think we did, didn't we?
Did we do that? We added a waiver due to the driveways, the shared driveways, I think, but I don't think we issued the waiver.
You're thinking about the spacing requirements?
For the driveway entrances entering the public highway that are supposed to be.
If I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think did we meet the driveway separation distance requirements
I think we,
on this one?
I think what we've done with residential projects, now that I'm seeing a pattern emerge, is
Right.
we've focused on the site distances and not the separation for residential properties. That's what I've noticed that we've been doing. In which case, I think we have to give them the waiver as kind of a byproduct of what we've done.
Yeah, okay.
So it's kind of a formality, but
Yeah.
nothing that really impacts the application.
I think that we've got the site distances resolved, we've got a clear zone that's being proposed. I think that's a good effort in that direction.
So to the extent that a waiver, the planning board grants a waiver to the separation, driveway separation distance requirements to the extent necessary to allow for the driveway entrances as depicted on these plans. Okay. That's on the recording, right, Lisa?
Yes,
Okay.
I can get that off the
Say
recording.
it best the first time, then you have to try to recreate it, forget it.
Right.
That all for that section, Wes?
Yes, and then I'll add a condition to the next section, but I'll let you get through those first.
Okay. Conditions that are ongoing standard conditions that must be adhered to. Number 1, that the major subdivision comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including section 4. Number 2,
The 2-year maintenance bond, we took that one out.
I think he's
Yeah,
renumbering
I'm
his
not
page.
reading that one. That's-
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
all. Number two, that approved subdivision maps, including conservation easements, lot consolidations, and lot line adjustments shall be submitted in digital format, AutoCAD 2002 or latest version, effective January 1, 2002, per Town Board Resolution Number 193 of June 23, 2003. 3, that all water services will need to be directionally drilled. There shall be no open cut on Ballentown Road. 4, that a Town and Victor Highway work permit be obtained for work occurring in the town's right-of-way. Number 5, that the site plan approval will be required by the planning board prior to lots 5, 6, and 7 becoming buildable lots and before issuance of a building permit. 6, that a pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of construction. 7, should an underground stream be encountered during construction, the developer is to address the encroachment and impact to the underground stream to the satisfaction of the town engineer.
So, work with me on this language. I've said, prior to a building permit being issued, that a letter be provided to the town verifying that the buyer was notified of potential historic significance of the barn. For Lot 2, on Lot 2. Yeah.
You don't have any buyers yet, do you?
Was that, I was trying to address Scott Harter's.
Yeah, I think
Does that cover it?
I think that says it.
An ongoing condition, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So be it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Lisa?
Got it.
Right.
On the recording, I'll get it.
Is there anything else, Wes?
That's all I've got.
And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Scott moves, have a second?
I'll second.
No seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was our
So,
last one, right?
before we adjourn, I just wanted to ask Wes about, and probably Scott, about this driveway separation clause. Not for this project necessarily, but should we be looking at the code to say that, you know, if there's this distance requirement, unless it's driveways that can't be separated by that much, in which case they also have to satisfy a site distance requirement and not have to give them a waiver if it does satisfy that, if it's less than distance. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think with this project, we went around and around with the locations of the,
It's on the record.
It is until we adjourn.
I think with this one, we went around and around on where the driveways best fit, and we had a lot of input from the public, so I think that kind of overrode in my mind, boy, the need to satisfy that code requirement. I also think, based on past projects we've had, it seems like Van Bortle, for example, was a good one to apply that to, in my opinion. But I think with the residential projects, they're hard to satisfy, and given the various lot configurations, and how often at least I've tried to put this into motion, my thought is that we should amend our code
Right.
to apply that criteria exactly as we're doing it. That's what I think.
Yeah, maybe I'm saying the same thing, just in a
So in
different
which
way.
case, I think, if they've done what they've done, which they did, that in order to be complete in our resolution, we have to indicate that we gave a waiver.
Yeah, no, and I'm good with that. I don't want to have to keep giving away waivers every time an application comes in for
Right.
a small subdivision.
Yeah, I don't
If
either.
we're going to do that.
Right, well, again, if you think about it, right, if
Yeah.
the minimum width of a lot is 100 feet,
Yeah,
then we can have a driveway every 100 feet
right.
on a road, on a county road.
It seems to me this is more for public road to public road
Right.
coming in.
Commercial
A new
access
subdivision
Yeah, I
public
agree.
road.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think subdivision roads, like a conventional subdivision coming out onto a public highway, I think that's applicable. I think Van Bortle sticks in my mind because we're asking for like 3 entrances along in there, and even the county, the state DOT came in and said, you're asking for too much.
Yeah.
Essentially is what they said, as I interpreted it. But this also reminds me of, like, when we do variances, when I was on the zoning board. I mean, if you have people that keep coming in for variances all the time,
Yeah.
It kind of tells you that, maybe you got to change your variance or your zoning code.
Right.
Yep.
I agree.
So I think if I've learned some things being on the board so far, I think this is probably one item that we need to modify a little bit.
Yeah. So what's the mechanism for that? Do we ask the
So
town?
we've actually been kind of documenting some of these waivers, right, for the separation distance requirements. And we had begun to take some notes and make some potential modifications. So these separation distance requirements came about as part of the access management plan that Labella participated in, where Ontario County planning staff actually wrote
Right.
regulatory requirements,
Right.
which were adopted by the town board. And I
Right.
think we've found, as you've articulated here, that they seem to be very unreasonable in the residential, out in the countryside sort of thing versus, right, they kind of universally applied these separation distance requirements along many, many roads in the town of Victor, where if you have a residential zoning district and these parcels are just being accessed by the homeowners and a potential delivery here and there, they don't make sense. But if you look at the function of land use and zoning, where you have your commercial, light industrial, those access management standards or separation requirements might make more sense.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I attended that seminar, and I think Lorenzo was there, and Tom Harvey was there, and I know Tom Harvey was big on this, and Tom Harvey has enacted it in the town of Gorham, where he's planning board chair, and I come in there every now and then, and I have this discussion with him, so I'm pretty familiar with it. But I think something's been learned from all of this. At least I've learned something in terms of how we apply it in a good way, in a fair way.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what it's all about.
So would you guys be looking at multiple items, including this one, to come before the board and say we have some suggestions for code?
Yeah, what we can do, what I would envision is based on our notes and history, identify the areas where, right, the county's regulation that was adopted goes by road, right? And they gave a functional classification to these roads. And I think some of those roads need to be taken off of that list, or somehow it's amended so that it's not done by the functional classification of roadway, more by zoning and land use.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not so much the classification of highway, although that may weigh into it.
Yep.
But I think use is a big factor, and because we have so many different size and shaped lots, and when you get down to it, the individual residential use typically of these lots is not all that significant. By the same token, we have 332 in Canandaigua, which has been a case study, I think, for access management. That whole road was rebuilt, and I remember working with some of the people on that. That really was a whole new level, and since it was implemented, and since so many access roads went in parallel to Route 332, I mean, for those of us who remember, it's a lot better for what was done. So I guess what I'm saying is it has value. But I think that's more of a typical application of it when we get into these larger highways and such, and commercial development.
Yeah. Well, I can follow up with Kim on that discussion, and also talk with Jack about it too. And we've touched base, probably a year ago or so, we talked about it as well, and maybe it's time to start getting that moving so that we can take something to the town board to consider.
And maybe we as a board could, issue some communication to the town board saying that, having applied this code that you adopted, we find ourselves issuing these waivers, which are kind of our counters, if you will, as to what's going on. I agree with your waiver comment, Joe. So, it makes sense to make this change, and I think you're on the right track with the use and the classification of the highways. And
Okay,
as
then.
long as we've got a minute to talk, I guess I had a question.
Well, should we put this off the record now?
Do you want to?
Does Lisa want to type all this?
Whatever you guys want.
Could I just ask a question on The Benderson development and the electric car area where you charge your car and
I was just up there yesterday.
green neon
Yeah.
light that seems to stay on all night long.
Yeah, it's very promotional.
I remember when they were here, I asked the question of the person presenting, you know, what the lighting was, and they indicated they weren't going to do any new lighting, but they didn't indicate in that presentation that they were going to effectively create this glowing orb. I don't know if you've driven by at night, but you cannot miss it.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm just throwing that out there for whatever. I'm kind of curious if we approve that, and if we did, I feel very bad.
That's a great question. I wonder if the color, that perimeter color that we're seeing is used as a signal. If green, maybe that means it's available for someone to charge their car.
Or it's a green solution.
But then if it's red, means it's occupied, so maybe it gives the people off in the distance an idea, okay, there's a spot open over there for me to charge. But I think you're right with regard to the town's lighting regulations and design, a detail, right? I don't remember if we had an actual specific detail for the charging station itself.
We saw a picture of it, but no glowing
Yeah.
orb, you know?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I really think, you know, we deal somewhat with aesthetics here. We're dealing with some of them on the car wash project and the blue, which is another subject. But I think these issues kind of jump out at us, and I think we need to kind of consider them. I really think that emulates neon. I also think it should be subject to the hours of operation that are associated with the site lighting. So if the site lighting's off, I think the green orb goes off too.
But if they're available 24/7, they should have some sort of lighting, I would think,
Right, but
and not the glowing green
to that
whatever.
magnitude, I
Yeah.
We had that question with the drive-through teller next to Route 96.
The railroad, or no, just the.
Bank of America
Yeah.
next to Panera?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, we did look at the lighting there quite
Okay.
in detail, right?
But those banks with their ATMs, they have some sort of federal thing that allows
Yeah.
them to get away with.
Yeah, there's the
some-
ATM Safety Act,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But I don't know, maybe Elon Musk has got something going on here. I'm not quite sure, but it's quite something.
up to the
Can I
mic.
just say one thing very quickly?
Yeah.
Scott Reinhardt, Victor Hiking Trails. I just want to comment on the Ballentown, and I know it's closed, but the gentleman mentioned how, in the last meeting when he discussed it, you said that you wanted Parks and Recreation to meet with them to talk about the trail issue. And I'm going to disagree with what the developer said. I know for a fact that Parks and Recreation reached out and tried to set up a meeting, and there was no response. And actually, when I heard the comment about the proposals were too far apart, Parks and Recreation agreed to go with their proposal and got no response. So I just don't want Parks and Recreation to be thrown under the bus like that, because I know they made a conscientious effort to try to work things out and got no response on it.
Probably would have been good to come to the board
Yeah.
during that meeting, I think.
What was that?
If you would have come up and made a
I
statement.
wasn't sure,
with-
because I heard you say not a public meeting, so I wasn't sure if I was
It
allowed to
wasn't.
get up.
By the same token, they're going to be back for those other 3 lots.
It's true.
So you'll have another bite at the apple.
Well, it is what it is, you know,
Yeah.
I was trying to get a hold of somebody from Parks and Recreation while we were in here, but I just wanted you to know that they did make an effort, and we heard about the effort, and they wrote letters and emails and everything else and got no response from it, so that's not, I don't care about him, I'm caring about Parks and Recreation, I know they made the effort, so.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for all the work you guys do.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Ed, did you have something you wanted to talk about? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. Drive by and check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, the only saving grace is it's in the middle of a commercial district, you can't really
Five
see
Guys.
it.
Or Five Guys is?
Yeah, that and, what is it, Jersey Mike's?
Jersey Mike's.
Yep. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move it.
Good. Joe moves to adjourn. Scott seconds.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Welcome.